Alright, so we made it through part 1, on to part 2, Key of G, Pink Floyd, Wish You Were Here. Another great song, another great example of what we're talking about, taking single notes from a key, turning them into riffs and chords to make a cool sounding piece of music, alright? So we're going to do a somewhat simplified version of the song, and it's going to sound like this. And that's just going to be the intro, and then we're going to learn the verse and the chorus, the rest of the chords that the words go over. It's going to be a little bit different, but all using stuff from the key of G. So we already talked about the chords that are in the key of C. So really, there's only one note that is different from the notes in the key of C than the notes in the key of G. So we're going to get to that in a second. First, I want to talk about this intro, which is basically just two chords, and they're already chords that we've learned. So as you'll find out, a lot of these keys we're going to talk about share certain chords, all right? Now, we start off here on the 3rd fret of the low E string. So, what does this already tell you, right? We talked about in the last video, this is a G note, okay? What's representative of a G note many times is a G major chord. This is not an exception. That's going to be the first chord we're going to talk about here, but we're going to play it just as a note. Then after that, we're going to add other notes from that same key. Alright, very recognizable, iconic type of riff right here that is really easy to play. That's exactly what we're going for. Stuff that sounds great, also easy to play. 3E, A string open. You can hammer on by just striking the string once and then using your pointer finger or whatever finger you want to come down and strike that 2nd fret, or you can play them both. After that, we're going to go right to the D string. So G, A, 2A, D, and then we're going to settle on the 2nd fret of the D string. Now right after that, we're going to jump right into this E minor chord, okay? Again, it's from that chord scale that we learned in the key of C. Alright, there's the riff. And I played an E minor 2 times using just downstrokes. Now this is going to be another thing like we talked about before, where the context of what you're playing has to do which chord voicing you use. So when I'm playing it like this, and maybe my middle finger ends up being the last note I play, that 2nd fret on the D string, maybe I'll use my pointer finger to play E minor like this, instead of playing it like this, okay? It's all contextual, however you want to do it. But the first part of that song is... And then after that, we're going to have another riff. Really easy. 2D, open G, 2D, open D. Then after that, we're going to just strum that G major chord 2 times. Now we're going to go right back to where we started. And again. Okay, so we repeat that. It's really just 2 chords with notes from the scale in between them, okay? Now would be as good a time as any to talk about the notes in the G major scale. We take that same hand position we learned in the first video, where we went A string 3-5, D string 2-3-5, G string 2-4-5. Move everything 1 string lower, because instead of being in C major, now we're in G major. All right. So the 3rd fret on the low E string is a G. Everything is the same. The whole hand position is the same as what we did before. The beauty of guitar is movable shapes. This is a movable shape. But now the notes that it gives us are G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, and another G, okay? So the only difference between these 2 keys, the key of C and the key of G, is that we have an F sharp instead of an F, all right? So, sharps and flats are something I want to spend just a minute talking about, okay? Because you have to understand how the musical alphabet works, if not, you know, like memorize it and stuff like that and kind of know where all the sharps and flats are all over the guitar neck. But, like we said, there's only 7 letters of the alphabet that we use as notes, but in music, there are 12 different notes, okay? So again, there's 12 notes, but we only have 7 letters to talk about those 12 notes. It can be very confusing at first, but that's where sharps come in. Sharp means +1, essentially, and flat means -1. First of all, we're just going to talk about only sharps, all right? So let's talk about the alphabet just starting on A, like the regular alphabet does. The musical alphabet can also start on A. Let's talk about the A string. Open A, right? So when I play the string open, it's giving me an A note, assuming my guitar is in tune, which I think it is. So that's an A, all right? The first fret is going to be the next musical note in the musical alphabet. So remember, A +1 is A sharp. So the first fret on the A string is A sharp. The next note is going to be B. Now, the thing that's like confusing again is not every letter has a sharp. In fact, B and E are the only two that don't have sharps. So there's a joke in The Simpsons called, like, he was in a band called the B Sharps. It's kind of like a joke because there is no B sharp, right? But it's also a great way to remember that B and E, if you spell the word B, B-E, neither of those notes have sharps. It's a great way to just memorize the musical alphabet. That's all you have to know. A sharp, B. There's no B sharp, so we go right to the next note. C, third fret in the A string, we already talked about, is a C. The next note is C sharp, D, D sharp, E. There's no E sharp, so the next note is F, F sharp, G, G sharp, and the 12th fret is A. So the 12th fret, a lot of times on a guitar, will have 2 dots on the inlays because that's telling us where the musical alphabet starts over again. So just by memorizing the names of your strings, E, A, D, G, B, E, you already memorize 12 locations for notes because the 12th fret on each string is E, A, D, G, B, E, okay? So that works for any string. The E string is open E. So what's the first fret on the E string? E doesn't have a sharp, so it's F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A sharp, B, C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, okay? So, again, that can be done to a lot of people. I'll just remember, we're gonna write it down for you. You don't really have to always memorize where all the notes are. That'll come later, even if at all. But it's good to know the progression of the musical alphabet because it's really, really gonna help you out. So, back to the key of G, right? G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp. Instead of having an F, we have an F sharp. It's the only difference between the key of G and the key of C. But now, any chord that had an F in it, if we change that to an F sharp, we actually yield a couple of different chords, all right? So just like before in the key of C, where we went through a chord scale of the 6 main chords in the key of C, we're gonna go through the chord scale for the key of G, all right? So G is the first note, G major, all right? A is the second note, A minor. So far, those are also chords in the key of C, right? If I just played just those 2 chords, I could be in the key of C, I could be in the key of G, I'm not really sure yet. Now the third note, 1, 2, 3. Now the third note, G, A, B, is a B. So B minor is a brand new chord that we have introduced, all right? Again, this chord isn't actually in the Pink Floyd song that we're gonna learn in a second, but it is in the key of G, so it's one of the 10 that we have to learn. The 4 chord is a C major. 1, 2, 3, 4. The 5 chord in the key of G is a D. So here's another new one. D major. All right, that's another one of the 10 that we have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The next note is an E, second fret on the D string. D, D sharp, E is an E minor. Okay, so all the main chords in the key of G are G major, A minor, B minor, C major, D major, and E minor. All right, so the 2 chords that are different from C and G is we've introduced B minor and D major. All right, maybe you already know these chords. The D major is one that we need for this song. So we're gonna get back to the chord scale at the end of the video, but I wanna go jump back into Wish You Were Here by Pink Floyd, all right? So after we've taken some of these riffs, back to the riff, E minor, and again this is 2D, open G, 2D, D, back to the same riff. Now right there, I'm just taking open A, 2D, and 2G. It's kind of like the beginning of an A minor chord. You can interchangeably use this as an A minor. I think they might play a different version of it in the recorded version, but that's one we definitely want to learn. We're going to go back to a G chord, okay? Now, where the new chords in the key of G get introduced is when we start playing the actual song, okay? So the singing starts on a C chord. To a D chord, A minor, back to G. So we have 4 chords that we're working with in the verse of this song. C major, D major, A minor, G. All of those come from the G major scale. But let's talk about this new chord, D major, all right? Your middle finger is on the 2nd fret of the high E string. Your ring finger is on the 3rd fret of the B string. Your pointer finger is on the 2nd fret of the G string. And open D. D is our root note because it's a D chord. All right? So D major is another one of those 10 chords that we need to know, all right? C major, D major, A minor, G. Okay, now let's talk about a strumming pattern that goes with it. Okay, so that strumming pattern, if we just go down and up, it's going to be down, 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 up, down, down, up, down, up, down, 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 up, down, down, up, down, up, down, 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 up, down, down, up, down, up, down, 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 up, down, down, up, down. Okay, so I'm a big fan of musical counting, which we're going to get to in a future video, but for now, just try to use your ears and then just try to play it in time. If that's a little bit too tricky doing the down and ups, just do downs again. 1, 2, 3, 4, to D, 2, 3, 4, to A minor, 1, 2, 3, 4, back to G, 2, 3, 4. So that's the first half of the entire chord progression, okay?